And we pick it up with the Falcons, who made easy work of the Seahawks 36-20 and earned their first victory in the playoffs since the 2012 divisional round, which was also versus Seattle. It was not the Legion of Boom's day, allowing the second most points in a playoff game. Max, was this game more about good Falcons or bad Seahawks?
All right, I want Atlanta Falcons fans to listen to me very carefully.
Rise up.
I'm giving you your props, okay? This Falcons defense was non-existent in the beginning of the year. As with several of these playoff teams, they became kind of sneaky good, and the Falcons showed real character against the Seahawks. Look, Devin Hester's, the 79-yard, and then with the penalty, wound up like an 84-yard reversal of fortune, which wound up in a safety and everything. Yes, that helped the Falcons, but whatever. That wasn't the final score of the game. The Falcons, I thought, would lose to a Seattle team because Seattle had been there before. Pete Carroll, you have a great coach. Russell Wilson, a great quarterback. Enough of the Legion of Boom still on defense and all that they would test the Falcons' character. And they did. They did test the Falcons' character. And the Falcons passed it with flying colors. The defense, as I mentioned, come around. But the offense, Stephen A., is one of those greatest show on turf. New Orleans, Drew Brees, you want to say Kurt Warner, Drew Brees led tight offense. It just looks, when you're watching it, you go, there's no way to stop this. There are too many weapons and a quarterback playing on too high a level. And to say it was bad, so it's obviously great Falcons. Mm-hmm. But to say it was bad Seahawks also implies that somehow you were expecting more from the Seahawks. I thought they showed up. I thought they showed up to play. They had not looked good in recent weeks. Their O-line's been a problem all year. And then when Earl Thomas went down, their secondary has really underperformed. That was a huge loss. I can't say you were expecting more from the Seahawks. In the first half, they hung tough. The Falcons were too much. That is an excellent team, which at this point should be favored to go to the Super Bowl.
It's an excellent team, but they were ranked 27th defensively, 28th against the pass, and then they were going up against a Seattle team that didn't have really much to go on, and that's why it's a bad Seattle as far as I'm concerned. That's not to say that Atlanta isn't as good as we think they are, but Seattle definitely got exposed in terms of some of their deficiencies. And let's call it what it is. The Jimmy Graham trade is a flop. Jimmy Graham, 3 receptions, 22 yards. He's been a virtual no-show for most of his career in Seattle. And then you have to take into account the fact that you lost out on this guy, Max Unger, because that's who you let go in order to get Jimmy Graham on board. And your offensive line has not been the same since he departed. If your offensive line ain't the same, it's going to affect your running game, which we saw by Thomas Rawls only rushing for 34 yards. The absence of beast mode, which is also an identity crisis. And then you combine that with the fact that it puts more heat under Russell Wilson, and you've got some dude named Paul Richardson who can play, but Paul Richardson with Doug Baldwin and a suspect Jimmy Graham, it just doesn't seem that you have much in the degree of potency on the offensive side of the ball. Then we go to defense. You've got a situation where you got 2 corners that are questionable. Richard Sherman did not have a good day, obviously. They were targeting him. They were getting at him. They were getting the better of him to some degree. But what I saw was a frustrated Richard Sherman that was just out there being a professional and trying to do his job, as opposed to being a rough rider who really, really wanted it. His frustration seemed to have elevated, and I think that affected him to some degree. So we got that going on. Then we look at a guy, Earl Thomas, being out. Then we look at guys arguing with one another to the point where Cam Chancellor has to go out there afterwards and talks about how every time we argued about the officials, every time we argued about something is when we've suffered and when we've lost. They seem to have lost their identity. Doesn't mean they can't get it back, but they don't seem to be the same team that they once were.
I want to address the diagnosing the Seahawks for a second, because you're right, that Max Unger trade, if they could redo it, I hope they would. Especially in the modern NFL, where diagnosing the defense and communication and everything is so much more important, I think, than it's ever been. You have a center who can play. You may not want to disrupt that just to get another pass catcher, which is essentially what they did when they traded him for Jimmy Graham. But this goes to the Seahawks philosophy. Those who are thinking maybe the window's closing, whatever, you got a great quarterback, you got a great coach, you still got a great defense. I think they're fine. But they're in a league with finite resources because of a hard salary cap. Their philosophy seems to be, we're going to not spend much resources, meaning draft picks or money on the offensive line, hope over time and continuity and all those stuff, and coaching, they'll get better and better. I think they're going to have to start devoting some resources there, because that, yes, the Earl Thomas injury, killed it for them ultimately. But that, more than anything, was the weakness with the team this year. They couldn't get a running game going. They couldn't protect Russell Wilson, and that's because they don't devote resources to their O-line. I think they're going to have to start to do it.
They're going to have to start to do it because they have to value Russell Wilson. He's your franchise player. You got to take care of him, and the best way to take care of him is by making sure you take care of that offensive line. Because believe it or not, Dak Prescott is a beneficiary of Tony Romo because Tony Romo was the one who initially insisted to Jerry Jones, you got to buffer that offensive line and get me some help. And now Dak Prescott benefits from it. Ezekiel Elliott has benefited from it. If there's anything that the Dallas Cowboys can teach you on a day like today where their losing tendencies have reaped yet again, here's the bottom line.
Gratuitous.
You look at that, yes it is. You look at them and you say, okay, one of the things that I need to do is buffer my offensive line at every opportunity. Because if I have an offensive line, chances are I'm going to have a decent running game, I'm going to have a decent passing attack, and I'm going to be able to protect my quarterback and ensure his longevity. None of those issues are working beneficially to Russell Wilson right now.
You said, real quick, bad Seahawks. Here's my question, because we know it's at least good Falcons. Is this good Falcons or great Falcons? Because I'm this close to saying great Falcons.
Well, they're so fun to watch.
Close ain't there yet. Close ain't there yet. The Atlanta Falcons made it to an NFC Championship game a few years back when they lost to San Francisco. Let's find out.
This is a different team.
I understand that. We will find out Sunday. This is a different team. This is a different team. And then they go Sunday and stick up the joint.
By the way,
let's find out.
Falcons in the NFC, Raiders in the AFC next year. Those are the teams everyone's going to be watching.
Next year we'll get to next year. Let's see what the Falcons do this Sunday.
Let's
see what they do.
Rise up, Falcons fans. He's starting to get on my nerves. Coming up. Good to see you.
Nothing pleasant for him right now.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Don't you touch me. Don't you do it. Don't you. I'm going to cut you. I'll cut you.
Don't do it.
Cute.
Don't do it, buddy.
Cute.
I just want you to know. I feel your pain.
Get off of me.
I do, man. I want y'all to know the Will Canes of the world.
If there was a hug.
People like that. Hold on. You want some?
All right.
What's the
Cowboys came back from being down 18 points to tie it, but it wasn't enough. You can't leave 35 seconds on the clock with this man, Aaron Rodgers, at the helm as Green Bay went on to win 34-31. So we asked you guys on Twitter earlier in the show if the Cowboys season was a failure, and the results are in 54% saying it is not a failure. Will, was it?
Was the Cowboys season a failure? First of all, can I say something? I have no game plan.
Okay.
None. I have no idea what's going to come out of my mouth.
Okay.
Like the Cowboys.
Next
Stream
30
of
seconds.
consciousness. We want to hear
Max. Not unlike Jason Garrett, who
right.
didn't run the ball 30 times like they need. I literally don't know what I'm going to say in the next minute.
Just go. The floor is yours.
Well, who knows where this could go, Molly? Can I just tell you this? The only thing I do know is this. You have embarrassed yourself in such a short amount of time. All I know is this. This is what fans do. We grieve. We celebrate. We go through it together. We hurt together. We love together. We don't ever show up the day after your team wins. Who won the Steelers-Chiefs game? Who won it?
Steelers.
You would never, under any circumstances, show up the day after your team wins in another man's jersey.
All right.
You are a sports bigamist.
Yep.
You have selected team after team. Maybe it's the color yellow. I think maybe Steelers, Packers. Well, then there's the Giants, though. I forget sometimes there's the Giants in your equation, too. You, my friend, have lost all credibility.
Okay.
All credibility.
Right.
Only rivaled by your friend over here who told me about 10 minutes ago that the Giants had a better season than the Cowboys.
Right.
The 11-5 Giants who lost in the wild card.
I'll prove it to you in a minute.
Had a better season than the division.
So after that devastating loss by the Cowboys last night, that's the best you could come up with? That's
I don't know.
That's the best.
Give me another minute.
I want to
know how angry you were about that play call.
Damn.
I'm incredibly angry about the play calling.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've watched.
Why did you
show.
abandon? Why did you guys abandon your
show.
normal game plan?
I don't know, Molly. Gil Brandt tweeted this last week. Teams in the playoffs that have a rusher that rushes the ball 30 times or more, this is no small number, are 37-0. Ezekiel Elliott was carving up the Packers defense, averaging 6 yards a carry. Give the man the ball twice and it's a first down. Just do that over and over and over until they stop it. We gave it to him 22 times.
What's crazy, too, is they would stop Zeke, and he a bad run for him was like 4 to 6 yards.
Yes.
When he would get contacted, and somehow he would just fall forward 4 or 5 yards. They could not stop Ezekiel Elliott.
I don't know. Stephen A. may think I'm used to being this way, being this loser. See, should I be gracious? Should I be mad? I don't know. All I know is this. I'm going to give Aaron Rodgers the credit. He is a bad man. There is no question. You said last week, I said Aaron Rodgers had to be perfect for them to win. You said he had to be more than perfect and could be more than perfect. He was. He was magical. There's some kind of black magic going on in Green Bay. The guy's eyes never change. He looks like a serial killer calm at all times. That's Gordon Keith's line, but it is amazing. And he was. Aaron Rodgers was amazing, but if Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan run the ball 30 times, Aaron Rodgers is on the field less. Mm-hmm. There's not 30 seconds for Aaron Rodgers to work that magic and have that 36-yard incredible pass. Those things don't happen if Ezekiel Elliott carries the ball 30 times or more.
Well, what I tried to explain to you on many, many occasions, but being hard-headed, biased, and hiding behind fandom to excuse your ignorance led you to continuously do was ignore the words of wisdom that I tried to espouse upon you. What I have repeatedly said to you and Cowboy fans everywhere, I said, it's not about the other team. It's not about just the other players. It's about the fact that the Cowboys would do something to mess up.
Why are you wearing that jersey?
Yeah, because,
why aren't you wearing a Jason Garrett jersey?
Because here's what. Well, actually, we didn't have the Jason Garrett jersey. I would have preferred to wear that. But this was apropos because Aaron Rodgers stuck such daggers in your heart that was appropriate for me to wear. And considering the fact that I'm the one that calls him the bad man that he is, it's definitely apropos for me to put on an Aaron Rodgers jersey. But I also want to point out this. This is once again what I had said. Dallas Cowboys are allergic to prosperity. What they do is they steal headlines. They put themselves in positions to get all the notoriety. And right when hope transforms into expectation and you anticipate instead of pray, what happens is they ruin everything for you. They let you down. This is why you yourself come up with your weak excuses, point something at me, calling Max names and all of this other stuff. That's why you decided to go behind and come and enter the set from a different angle, because it was just hurting you to walk by. It's why you have found yourself devoid of any substantive words to explain what has happened. Your Cowboys let you down because you got caught up in the sauce. You got caught hook, line, and sinker, believing that somehow, some way, a Dak Prescott, an Ezekiel Elliott, that offensive line, a Des Bryant, everything would come together, and you thought y'all were going to win the Super Bowl. Not only did I tell you that the Dallas Cowboys would lose, I told you they wouldn't win a playoff game. That is what I said, and that is what has happened.
What's the question?
Once again.
Was the season a failure?
Okay.
Yes, it was a failure.
Okay, well, I don't know. Was the season a failure? You have two.
You guys feel good about yourselves, right?
Yes.
You
have two MVP candidates. Two MVP candidates. You have the best offensive line in football. Mm-hmm. You have, according to sources, Will Kane, an extremely underrated defense. You're playing at home, and you don't win a single playoff game. Is that a failure? Is there a word in any language that you could think of? The failure is the word. Now, as far as the Giants and the Cowboys go,
here we go.
Which team would you rather be? You play in the same division, you both make the playoffs, you both lose to the same team. Neither one of you wins a playoff game. One loses on the road, the other, who are Super Bowl favorites, lose at home. Now, the team that loses at home does have a record 2 games better than the team that lost on the road to the same team. But when they played head-to-head, the rivalry games, the other team won twice. Who had a better season, Will?
Okay. Packers fans, this is not about you. Aaron Rodgers, that was amazing. He's incredible, all that. You got the win. It's about these two guys. Let me tell you something. Okay, that's asinine analysis. The season was not a failure. And a man that starts the season out saying that they will be last place in the NFC East and holds and maintains that position throughout, midway through the season, is one whose credibility on whether or not the season is a failure or not has very little weight.
Not fair.
Very little
I may
weight.
be slow, but I'm not stupid. I changed halfway through the season.
This is a season.
Adjust expectations.
They were 4-12. They had a 9-game improvement. They lost their starting quarterback before the season began. They went 13-3, tying the rookie record for wins, and yes, went to the divisional round of the playoffs, where they lost.
They went to the divisional round.
That is a disappointment. That is not a failure. Yeah, divisional round, by the way.
Yeah.
Divisional.
How many playoff games
Giants
did they
lost
win?
in the wild card. Just
as usual,
be clear, they lost in the wild card.
They pretty much hit their average.
Why are we talking about the Giants?
They pretty much hit their average of not winning a playoff game. They did it again. And by the way, Aaron Rodgers, look, I feel for you because, yes, Jason Garrett made some bad decisions. It probably cost him the game, although he did other things as a coach that brought them to, the precipice of winning a single playoff game, whatever. But I feel for you because I remember as a Knicks fan, there were early years before Jordan was squad up, right? Before he had a real crew, where I felt the Knicks on paper had a better team and you just couldn't beat Michael Jordan. That's Aaron Rodgers. He is better than perfect. He does everything right. Plus,
he's amazing.
And Dallas didn't have an answer.
The only thing you can do is keep the man off the field. I don't even think it's the defense's fault. What can you do with Aaron Rodgers?
That's what I would be most angry about.
The only thing you can do is keep him off the field.
He's not running the ball.
First drive of the game, 3rd and 2. What do? We threw it into double coverage with Des Bryant, and it doesn't go. And
why'd they clock the ball? With 35, leaving Aaron Rodgers 35 seconds, you clocked the ball instead of using a timeout. That's a mistake.
Dak's interception, 2nd and 1. Didn't run the ball, throwing it again. When the man is averaging 6 yards a carry, but
isn't Stephen A. right? Isn't Stephen A. right?
No,
they beat themselves.
You're arguing they did it to themselves.
An accident waiting to happen. They beat themselves.
Let me do this. This accident waiting to happen. I've said it. You know it's coming. It's the weakest and worst prediction on all of sports. It's the biggest fraud perpetuated on these poor people that tune into this program of all time. Because 31 teams. For 31 teams every year, Molly.
For the Cowboys every year. It's accurate.
For one team every year.
Let me ask you this. What would you...
Giants have won 2 Super Bowls recently.
Not qualified as an accident waiting to happen. Coaching decisions, fumbles, interceptions, the ball bouncing the wrong way, any of it works into your argument. Literally, anything under the kingdom of God would work into your accident waiting to happen.
Unless you win a playoff game.
Any of it.
Unless you win a Super Bowl.
And therefore, you get 31 teams every year to prove you right, while you root for 5 different teams to wear a jersey out here. And I know you don't understand how I feel, because you have 5 teams. I know you don't understand it.
You finished?
No, I'm just taking a break.
I have one.
Well, you're taking a break because you keep trying to come up with something to evade
I think
the
I'm doing
bigger
a pretty
point.
good job.
You're not. You're not. It's actually quite pathetic to watch. That's why I'm enjoying it so much. I mean, really what it comes down to, Will, is this. We're talking about 21 years I've been saying this. See, you keep talking about, 5 different teams or there's 31 other teams. No. 21 years.
A lot of years.
I have said it. I have been right. Number 1. Number 2. Your argument doesn't hold water. You know why? Because even though you said there's 31 other options that I may have and what have you, you said I was wrong. And you have yet to be right. The fact of the matter is that you have every reason to agree with me, but you wouldn't. Despite the obvious, I didn't sit up there and say the Dallas Cowboys would lose. I said it would be their fault. They would get in the way.
You said they would win the division and get in their own way.
I said,
you did say that.
I sat up there and I said they're going to continue to build themselves and be in a position of prosperity, and then they will plummet and break your heart. And right now, you're sitting on this right here. You got a broken heart. Look at your face. Look at your face. Look at the camera.
Let's let Will have the last word.
Go ahead. You can have it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Molly.
You can have it. Go ahead. It's all yours.
Disrespectful of you. It's so disrespectful.
Yeah.
That you come out here wearing that jersey.
Yeah.
Months and years of saying what a bad man, and then you take all credit away from him by saying it's the Dallas Cowboys. You give him no credit.
No.
You're taking it all away by saying it's a black cat that walked across the Cowboys.
If you remember,
on that note,
if you remember, I was in Dallas. I was in Dallas. Listen, I wore an Aaron Rodgers jersey in Dallas doing First Take.
Okay.
Remember
on that note, Will, there's a lot to be optimistic about. I truly believe that for your team. We'll get into that later, and I'm looking forward to that conversation. We'll be back with us in just a little bit.